Well, my name is Shubrata Devnath with the Analysis Express, and I'm very privileged to be here with local business leaders from the transportation, further, and research, So, as you know, Oracle is moving fast with so many business intelligence, analytics, ETL and DM solutions. It's very hard to kind of keep track which one to use, what is the best methodology, and how these companies found success. How they were very good at that implementing. So we're gonna have a chance to discuss that. So with that, I'd like to maybe get introduction.
Sure. So give a little perspective on Brett Fertwingler. I've worked at we have an Oracle data warehouse underneath it all. We use EIS to spin cubes. So, I'm sure there's some other acronyms I've missed somewhere along the way. But so we use really the breadth of the tool set for the most part, and are having a great deal of success, and we continue to expand. Start out in the financial area. We just had a workout session this past week up in Erie, and we're expanding to support marketing, commercial sales, and other things as well beyond just the finance realm.
And they're located all over the world.
Yes, worldwide implementation, so we have 24/7 considerations as we do our rollouts.
I'm Elizabeth Farrell. I currently work at Kroger, and I've about 10 years background in Converge, Toyota, and a few other implementations. Currently, we're looking to do a major upgrade. Part of the reason I joined the team. Kroger's got a really large S-base implementation, but it's version 7 for the most part. They've got about 2,500 users, about 300 cubes. Our expansion in the next 2 years is going to be 13,700 users. So they have it's going to be a big conversion. But there's a lot of automation, right? It's a pretty slick setup. If anyone's familiar with Matt Holt, he really built and designed this whole thing, and I've inherited a really wonderful system.
All right. My name is Jim Plum. I'm with INC Research. It's a clinical research organization. We're located real close to Kroger, downtown Cincinnati. We work with big pharma companies, helping them get their drug to the market much quicker. We do all of the project management, we do the clinical trials, we span across lots of countries. We help get the enrollments, regulatory with the FDA. I'm one of director of the business intelligence group for the organization. And like my counterpart here at GE, we've been in the industry for about 20 years or so. 15 years, probably more specializing in business intelligence and data warehousing. Been on lots of implementations as well. I can probably speak to some of the OVOAUG, Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Suite. We've had some implementations there along the way. We are incorporating the Oracle data warehousing architecture coming from a couple of the packages, particularly project analytics, financial analytics. Those are two that we've deployed. We're probably just maybe a year or two into Hyperion. We've implemented planning for an annual budgeting perspective. So
various applications there, HFM, FDM, planning, S-Base. I've probably got the opposite situation from a lot of people here. Mine is an implementation that's less than 2 years in. So we are still in the initial growing pains of getting it in, getting it in place, getting users accepting it, and then figuring out where do we want to go next. We do have a global presence with businesses in Argentina, Mexico, Canada, and the U.S., not quite to the extent Brett deals with. And I only have about 80 users, so I'm in a totally different environment than some of the others. We are looking at not so much maintaining and streamlining, but just where do we want to grow, what do we want to do, and how to expand once you've got to start. Also looking at how to upsell an application to a parent company and trying to make sure that it becomes a global standard.
Thank you. Well, if you have questions, you can either raise your hand or ask questions, and then at the end, if you still have questions, drop off your cards, and then we can try to answer that as a group and send an email. But the format for this is like, okay, let's discuss some of the major technologies: Hyperion, OVOAUG, what to use when, and if you have a data warehouse, already set, would you start using OVOAUG or, take Hyperion, or would you convert from Hyperion to maybe perhaps ASO database to OVOAUG? What technology to use when, and how do you decide, or is it already decided for you?
I'm sure everybody has an individual answer, and I'd say that probably depends upon your organization. Where I'm at, fortunately, since we have all the different tool sets, we get to decide on what tool we think is the best utilization. So if what we're looking at is, again, one of the advantages that we have with EIS is you have drill through. And my experience is most companies talk about drill through, but very few actually are able to execute it. We actually do. We actually do drill through back to the Oracle data warehouse. So for us, if as we look at the requirements as we're given, if the requirement is primarily they want to go straight to the transaction detail, they want to see it that core level, we will direct them to IR, because that's our current query data tool set. We'll avoid sending them to S-Base and giving them a template where they do the drill through, because quite frankly, drill through takes time. Whereas IR, the query pullback is so quick. So partly we look at that, and then we are currently migrating off of IR into OVOAUG. So if you're familiar at all with OVOAUG, it's kind of like the old business object environment where you have to build a universe, kind of a language that layers on top. So we're new enough to that we're just playing around with it yet. So ultimately, instead of IR, we would direct people to OVOAUG, partly because of Oracle's stated lack of support for IR and moving towards OVOAUG. So again, look at it if it's transaction focused, we direct them that way. But if it's they want breadth and not depth, then we're probably going to send them to S-Base, because with S-Base being analytically focused but broad dimensionally, we're able to say, all right, if you want to focus in on sales, but you're not looking at transaction level, then go to our sales cube, or go to our orders cube, or go to our AR cube.
And I think Brett started out right. A lot of it depends upon the organization you're in to begin with. If you're in a small to mid-sized company, you own planning, you will find amazing uses for planning, because that's the hammer that you have to try to view every problem as something that fixes that. I've known people who've owned planning and have basically done everything from planning through to normal consolidation tasks that normally would be done in HFM. But planning was the application they had. They didn't have a ton of capital to spend, and you found ways to make it work. It's really about knowing your business and knowing your options and deciding what works in your individual case.
Right.
And I think sometimes, the toughest decision is how much to rely on consultants, how much to rely on what your business thinks is right, and try to do that balancing act of, do you buy an all-new tool, or do you try to make work what you have?
And speed versus cost. How quickly do they have to have it in?
And how intense are they? If they're looking for something similar just to get a basic job done, then that's a different question than if you're in some of the higher performing companies that expect every bell and every whistle too.
But is it true then for financial and non-financial data? So like if it's financial information versus non-financial, like transactional information, would you choose criteria for non-financial?
Well, I mean, yeah, again, it's going to kind of depend. If you've got S-base, I mean, S-base can do almost anything, right? Although, again, you're limited to the period balances and you're limited to numerics. If you're looking for textual context, you've got to go to an OVOAUG type solution in that case. Or, again, at some point you get into so many dimensions. I know Tim put an entire data warehouse on S-base where you had like 500 dimensions or something over there.
What our users could handle it.
But yeah, so I mean, that's the other thing is you got to know your user group, and if you have a smaller community, you can do more of a wacky solution because you can communicate to them. But when you have a large user set that with high turnover, it's got to be simple, and therefore it's going to have to be.
The solution you choose now might not be the solution you choose later. For instance, I'm in a company that has at least 7 different general ledger systems. Now, part of the strategy of this company is to start moving towards one, to start getting to one version of the truth. But because that, the number of data sources has to play into every decision that we make, because we don't have a central data warehouse that you can start from. We don't have a central general ledger that you can drill back to. I got 7. That changes some of the decisions you make, and sometimes you have a short-term strategy of how to get the job done for now, but you know there's going to have to be a phase 2 or phase 3. Exactly.
You really do. It makes you do.
And you guys are all talking about the variables that go into how do you decide which one, and I think that's where Kroger is, because I think we each have very individual problems to solve that we're using similar tools to do it, but Kroger basically has decided to pay a premium to have this S-based team that's sort of outside the IT world, but they are IT folks. And we've got both sides represented here with some of our IT S-based versus our functional, which also write count scripts and stuff like that. But we need this ability to rapid prototype sort of things, whereas IT is like, okay, we're going to design this heavy-duty solution to solve your problem, and it'll take a little bit of time, but it will be right. Whereas ours, we're like, we can give it to you right now, but you're going to be testing it in production. But then they can make
How risk
decisions
tolerant the
quickly.
organization is with playing for that?
And I kind of, as a developer, we enjoy it too. It's more fun to go building a cube to play. But I do think that S-base, 2080, incredible. But all of those two let you do rapid prototyping. And maybe that's not the cube that solves your.
And some organizations don't do well with that. Some organizations, and I worked for one that had a large user base. It was very structured due to the business they were in. Just moving from enterprise to HFM was a very long-term, multi-year project. This particular organization was not in a position that it could move quickly, that it could go from solution to solution quickly. So you're going to choose different tools and a different process than if you're in a small shop like I am, where you have 80 users. I can reach out and touch all of my users by name, so I know where they're at and how much risk and how much change they can handle.
Some of that has to do with the environment too. If you're in a heavily regulated environment, like when we used to work in banking or in the healthcare side of GE, in aviation, they have much different standards in terms of how they develop software. In part because the whole organization is very different. You think healthcare, you want to know that all those tools are clean and everything's ready to go. Whereas we make locomotives. There's a wrench in the locomotive, no big deal, nobody dies. So we don't have the same regulatory environment, so we can do more rapid development. We have our users very involved in our development, and if we put it out, it's not 100% correct. Whereas in healthcare and in aviation and at Fifth Third Bank, you had very stringent methodologies that you had to follow.
And gates. And if you didn't make the gate, you stopped. Whereas some companies, like the one I'm in now, if we didn't make the gate, we're closed. We'll keep going. We'll work it out. You really got to know the culture of your users, and part of it too is who's driving the project. Is this a business-driven project? Is it an IT-driven project? Is it a consultant-driven project? You can succeed in a lot of different ways, but you need to know what you're dealing with, and you need to have a good handle on how it's going to play.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on it there. At INC, we have pretty solid executive sponsorship throughout the organization. They've really given us, a clear direction that, hey, we're looking at one portal, one single sign-on, one version of the truth. We want to standardize on our reporting across the globe. So we did a make versus buy really type scenario, and we went out there and actually when I was hired on, we didn't actually have a BI tool we had implemented or purchased for that matter, and so we had to sell to the organization of what we were trying to achieve, and that was we wanted to create a single version of the truth. We had a lot of disparate systems. In some instances, we had probably 3,000 some financial reports, all kind of doing different things across the geographic globe. So we had a pretty big challenge on our hands, but to kind of get back to some of the tools that we were talking about, some of the things that we standardized on were for some of the ad hoc reporting capability. We recognize that there are, the executive level needs a certain aggregation of information and probably not too heavily complex than what they're trying to read and report on. So we built dashboards for them. We gave things at a very high level, and in some instances we gave some drill down capability. Certainly we didn't give any of the ad hoc reporting capability widespread, but really to a select group of people who could do kind of more ad hoc type reporting. That came in through the OVOAUG Answers suite. The standard reporting came in through Answers as well, for that matter. Let's see, as far as like some of the analytical type reporting, we have that space. We built a couple smaller financial type cubes to do some budget versus actual over maybe 5 to 7 different dimensions, maybe trending over time. So we're kind of touching the tip of the iceberg from that perspective. But one of the cool things about OVOAUG and the S-Space now, that in coming through some of the later releases, they've provided kind of an integration into that tool, whereas you can standardize on, which is important for us because we wanted a simple, straight look and feel across the entire reporting organization as it related to ad hoc reporting, standard reporting, and analytical type reporting. And through some of the later releases, we're not quite there yet with the Hyperion integration into that picture, but it's pretty cool how it can ultimately work out, whereas you can start invoking some of the S-Base cubes through the OVOAUG front end.
So very good. And that leads to the next question. Would you standardize ETL technology and MDM?
We
Technology.
at INC, the project analytics, financial analytics, if any of you are familiar with those two, they are pre-canned data warehousing solutions, all leveraging the OVOAUG suite. It already has pre-hooks, pre-ETL hooks into an ERP. In our case, it was PeopleSoft. I came from the legacy Kendall, and we were purchased by INC Research, but we were utilizing PeopleSoft. So there's probably, I want to say, 300 to 400 hooks into PeopleSoft, all leveraging Informatica, bringing it into a data warehousing environment, using OVOAUG on the front end for pre-canned, drill down, slicing and dicing type of capability. But from a custom perspective, we used Informatica from purely just a purchased application perspective. But from a custom, which we're now trying to get more into our clinical operations and our operational type data, we're leveraging Oracle Data Integrator. It's an ETL tool that allows you to extract information and build data warehouse.
Yeah, but that's interesting because we did Informatica and DIM, and obviously Oracle's moved away from that to ODI. I don't know, our experience is ODI is not nearly as mature a product as Informatica. So
yeah.
GE has maintained its standard on Informatica, so we're the lone horse. And we've only moved to ODI where we had to. So the low dimensional data for planning, we pretty much have to use ODI. So that's the only thing where we've moved to it. But our NDM tools, DRM, we're very satisfied with that. That's the mechanism that we feed all of our information, but we actually feed DRM into the data warehouse, and the data warehouse uses and spins off with EIS, all of our cubes.
Okay.
And then we have a separate feed off DRM doing the .app file feed, HFM, and all that stuff. So we've standardized completely on DRM and Informatica, except for where we cannot use.
How about it, Treasury?
We are a much smaller enterprise with a much smaller tool set. So knowing that we don't have the IT support that a GE or Fifth Third or some of the other companies would have, we keep it simple. We keep it as absolutely simple as we can. I've been blessed in one aspect in that I actually have my users pushing their data into HFM. So I actually have gotten, my nice small little user base trained to use FDM, and they post their own data into HFM for us. On the other hand, I don't have a huge range of tools. So again, if you have a couple of tools, you get really creative in how you do things. I use FDM to push data back and forth between HFM and planning.
That's interesting.
It is a tool that, again, a very good business user has gotten familiar with from having to push their general ledger data into, so we have good knowledge base and experience with it. Whereas I could take some time and learn ODI and try to push for other tools, I have a tool I can make work. Sometimes when you're in a smaller organization, that's the out of the box that you have to deal with because you don't have a limited budget and you don't have a lot of resources. So again, I've seen planning used creatively, I've seen S-Base used creatively, I've seen ODI used very creatively. Sometimes you have to say, it's not the end of the world if you don't have all the latest tools. What can I do to improve the situation I have now with what I have now?
Are you using FDM at all? FDQM?
FDM is what we do everything with in terms of ETL.
And
We do use a little ODI from loading.
We use
metadata,
FDM as
and
well.
that's about it.
We've got we're moving to a single global instance, just like I think Jim or somebody said. Okay, Jim. Somebody's moving to have multiple, I guess it was you. Multiple GLs. So we had multiple GLs, we're down to 2, and our goal is by Q3 of this year to be on a single global instance. But we do have a bunch of little affiliates, and we use FDM to have those guys feed. So we do use FDM. We use Informatica to swap data back and forth.
Oh, we're looking at some of the tools. I think we were looking at the S-Base Analytics.
Yeah.
And it's a really sweet tool, but when I have to sell the capital in a year that has been challenging for the business, and there's not a lot of capital to be had, might not happen.
I think that's what Kroger is. We're big, but we're what we call penny profits, and so we're very, very lean, and we need to stay
Very
that
cost
way.
effective.
Yeah, and so we do a whole lot with what we've got and the knowledge we have, and there's a bunch of tools that we have out there we don't have to use, which is part of our issue. And so there's nothing to drill back to. So everything is done through SQL, and which is why I kind of want to look at DRM and stuff, because I think we bought it, we haven't put it in, but we're managing to do.
All right, how many people own tools that you bought but you don't actually use? Come on,
Okay,
put your hands
yes.
up. We all have them.
Well, the thing is that we're doing a whole lot of stuff with SQL on a huge scale. I don't think it's sustainable, but it's working out the bugs until we can put forth the big solution. But it's really working for us, until we have to change everything. I do think people find a way to do with what they've got. And we do all our dimension builds through a SQL table, and it looks an awful lot like EIS.
I worked for one company that did all their dimension builds through Access combined with Help.
We did it
Not the
Cincinnati
way.
Bell.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, they're still doing it that way.
They're still doing it that way.
Jim?
And it's not the solution you think of, but.
Hey, weren't you the one who put that in place?
What?
Using Access to build the dimensions at Cincinnati Bell?
Sure.
Or there's Doug, there's Doug Cosby, I think, too.
I guess the other point.
Why are you calling me out, Brett? You call me out all
Hey, it's a
the
great solution, it's still working, man.
Well, you don't have budget, and you can only work within,
But
You
I
know,
think,
But it works.
my boss wouldn't give me budget at the time.
Yeah, well, sorry about
but
that.
I don't know the concept with the tools you have. Before then you know what you're getting into. I think it also outlines your implementation. So when we go to do an ERM, we know what we want. You know, we just want it to work faster, better, and be more robust and easier to upgrade. But
Yeah, and I mean, I think each company needs to know where they're at, you know. Is it about control for you? Is it about flexibility? Is it about getting answers quickly? Is it about, the business I'm in, really executives don't want to see details. They don't want to see a whole lot of information, but they want you to be able to spin on a dime and be able to change how something is reported, to be able to change entities, to change this. So in my business, it's flexibility. You know, and maybe 5-10 years from now, they're going to be at a totally different point in the evolution, and they're going to want a different solution. You know, that changes with the tools. Sometimes I think, and I'm a techno geek in a lot of ways, so I'll admit it, we love the tools. We say, oh, there's a really cool tool that you can use that does this. But a wise man that I once worked for said, remember, it's all about the data. And you've got to have good data regardless of what tool it's in. And I think we need to focus sometimes on making sure that the data is meeting the need and is hitting the solution that we need, even more than maybe it's the best tool or the favorite tool right now.
So,
Coming,
sorry.
I was just gonna mention that, coming from a company that has a lot of tools, I think you just touched on something that kind of hits home on some of the projects we're working on, and that is, you know, we can go to the business and sell them that if the data is available, we can pull it, we can report on it. There's a lot of instances where people don't always think that what they're asking for isn't in systems because they're getting information from a variety of disparate areas. And what we find out is we, start to peel back the onion and try to figure out where all the information is located in the organization. That, we don't have the business processes set up to acquire the information, to get it into systems, so that we can monitor the fact if we've got good data or not. But so.
Yeah, so the question I wanted to ask you, if flexibility is the, if you want flexibility, how do you do standardization? So is that an issue for you, or?
SOX is not my friend. It really isn't, because the speed that you sometimes have to make changes with puts you in a difficult position between how standardized is it and how quick is it. And that's where you have to have a strong relationship with your business, because they need to understand what they're asking for. Again, if you're working at a bank, the rules are laid out real early on that control is excruciatingly important. And they will sacrifice speed for control, consistency, and stability. That's a decision that's been made a very long time ago. And that's the rules of the game. Now, in the business I'm in, they're willing to sacrifice some of the security for speed, improvement, change, and moving forward off of where they're at. They've in effect decided that the existing systems, when I walked in the door, had no control as it was and were insufficient. So they didn't have a whole lot to lose, but they wanted to get off of where they were very quickly. Now, you educate as to the risks, and you say, are you sure you're sure? Are you sure you're sure you're sure that you want to do this? But in the end, it's the business's decision. And if they're educated, and if I've done my job as a partner, then I'm willing to partner with them and accept some of that risk too. So it is a trade-off between standardization and flexibility. No ifs, ands, or buts. I do a lot of development work in production. I think there's places where it does happen. And is it what you want to happen? No, but sometimes, given the time constraints, it's what does happen.
You're forced to do that. I mean, if your choice is the data's already wrong, or it's already what they don't want. I mean, back it up. Take a copy and just review it.
Well, and I think then even if you're not following the best IT practices for change management, you should know what the best practices for IT change management are. If you're going to have exposure, if you're going to have risk, make sure you know where that risk is, and make sure you know what you should be doing so that you know when you deviate from it.
And
It's not enough to close your eyes.
users, so if you mess something up, they're not going to be keeping you right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Very fair answer. So, any of you are doing any upgrade right now, and what's your experience?
We're planning, but
Yeah. Are you upgrading from perhaps any old technology to new, like enterprise to HFM or S-Base?
this is going to be from version 7 S-Base to 11, but the biggest change for us is going to be a Windows environments to AIX, and Unix environment. We're going to peak at exit data, but I think we've already committed resources to AIX, and I've come to the conclusion that you make platform decisions based on sort of three rules, right? There's you either it's the best choice, you've tested them all, you've looked at them all, and they're the best one. That's the one, and that's really what it comes down to, right? So okay, so that's the biggest one is where's your
You can't remember the third one? Are you running for president?
I want so much cold medicine, so are you. Anyway, but we're, the
And
third
you're
one,
sitting next to them.
the third one's your cars. That's it, right? So, but the biggest one is what's your core competency of your IT group? And do you have a bunch of Windows people, you're going to pick Windows. If you have a bunch of Work people, you're going to pick Work. If you got a bunch of AIX stuff, or VMware. I've seen that some.
Oh, no, not in Hyperion. Do not do VMware in Hyperion.
I know you don't do that. I begged and pleaded at the last place, please don't do that, please don't do that, please don't do that. That's all they have. And
Now, of
it's,
course, we're doing an inside joke here. I'm assuming that most of you know that although VMware technically is supposed to be able to run Hyperion, most of us who've been in the trenches will not recommend it if you really,
Oracle
really
doesn't, it's not certified.
It's not certified. They say you should be able to do it, but they cannot
But if
necessarily
they can't
support it.
replicate the issue,
and what's my one
then they
server
have
that
the option
goes
to tell you
down?
unless you can replicate it in a true environment.
What's my one server that goes down every Friday at close?
Now, that said, I do know of one instance where they did run production Hyperion on VM and did it well, but they also had dedicated VM support staff who knew their stuff and could manage it.
Well, and of course, you're using the term Hyperion. It's primarily S-based that you don't do VMware. HFM, you're probably okay. It's S-based memory management is all
It's
used.
a monster.
And therefore planning in S-based.
How about OVOAUG? Is it VM ready?
I've never heard of issues
No.
there.
Are you using Crystal or VM? No issues.
And in some cases, for instance, I have my dev environment on VM.
Right, and that's what I've seen. Dev,
It's, you know, a
dev
little less
environment.
risky. Now, the problem I have with that one is then my IT compatriots want me to be able to fully test every change in development before I roll it to production. Like, you understand, it probably can react differently. They're different base environments.
So you just have two environments, a dev and a prod, you don't have dev, QA, and prod?
No, I just have the two.
Well, then that's a problem. Because you also don't have a DR environment.
But again, I've also admitted this is a smaller, mid-sized company that has tried to be extremely cost-conscious and get as much user tool for the bag as they can.
All right, so what is the future? What we need to be worried about, or what is coming?
Change.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the challenges that I see is as Hyperion has moved forward, the tools have gotten more technical. They used to
Yeah.
sell it, this was a suite of tools that your average business user, A&F person could administer, and it did not require IT. That's no longer true. So for me, it's staying a close relationship with IT because more and more we have to work together. It's not mine, it's not theirs, it's ours. It is staying abreast of the list of tools and trying to figure out where do you want to go. What's the next great thing that would make your life better, that would make your company's life better? You know, we don't stand still. So how do you support a very active, very busy job and still look that next phase down and decide where you want to go. That's the hardest challenge I see moving forward as this becomes even more complex.
It's hard to find time for this group to be here even for an afternoon, right? It is. I mean, we're all checking our email and that sort of stuff. It's just, it's difficult to stay up on it.
How about you, Reverend? What are your sense?
I mean, for us, again, we've invested in IR and had a lot of success, but it's clear that that's not the direction that Oracle's going, so we're moving over to OVIE. I think OVIE is going to continue to expand. One of the things I like about it, for those of you who've done web analysis or web analytics, I've had 15 different names over the years. One of the frustrations with that kind of an interface is it doesn't print well. So you would do FR for reporting, you do web analytics for the graphic interface, but OVIE, from what I can tell, actually does both reasonably well.
It does.
And so that's pretty exciting to move to begin the process of migrating over that and get a more user-friendly syntax. That's the other thing you get, even though I'm not sure. I remember a lot of pain managing the business object universe, so I'm hoping that OVIE's layer, syntax layer, is quite as tough as business object was. But you know, so I see us moving more and more to users being more actively engaged in the management and manipulation of the data at a transaction level. That's at least true where I'm at. Whereas in the past, you would package all that up and really present that. Whereas it seems like from an analytics perspective, because the world changes so quickly, there's no way I can react as quickly. So they get down to the detail, pull it up, and look at it different ways, and come back to me with ideas about how they want to manage the data. And that's really kind of one of the nice things. You talk really more or less about agile development. And that's where you're working very closely with your users to come up with quick solutions. Well, what's great is if your users are already doing the agile development and come to you and say, this is what we really want. And so by being able to expose that level of detail to them and having them look at different ways to look at it, they come already with some fairly mature ideas to me that then I can work with the IT group and make more repeatable and efficient processes.
Again, you know, is it a company culture to push agile from project management office, or did you make a decision from business intelligence standpoint that okay, agile is the best method?
I mean, it'd be nice to say we made a conscious decision, but in all honesty, the culture of transportation is kind of like you guys are talking about, where I think manufacturing industry as a whole is how do you do it least expensive. So, you know, we're heavily into lean, we're heavily into quality, we're heavily into all of those things. Everything kind of cheaply. I mean, I remember when I first joined Fifth Third and had to buy my own pen, I thought this is ridiculous. Well, GE, yeah, they don't even supply paper. Good luck. And so, you know, it's a very low-cost environment. And so part of that is then everyone's used to saying, I've got to figure this out on my own. So there's already this culture of people, of analysts looking at a very detailed level, engineering culture, right? I mean, I think that's what engineers tend to do. Look at that detail, provide some analysis, and then feedback.
Well, and I think you've got an interesting mix too, in that I don't know your background, Jim, but I know most of us probably don't have a degree in IT that are sitting up here right now. So we're born and bred in the business community. So that's the perspective you're getting, is the need to serve the business community. I think somebody who came up from the IT side of the house and understands the nuts and bolts might have a slightly different answer to that too.
And I do, yes.
I guess just the one point to add is, as far as at least from an INC research perspective, kind of where we're going with things is, we're kind of, and how we've communicated back to the business is, you know, we've got all these tools, we've got some really great opportunity to do some things, and we are, in some respect, doing some really great things, but it's all about selling back to the organization that we're building the foundation. I think the company wants to get to predictive analysis, but yet, you know, we're just trying to get reported to them off the ground. So we're building the hooks. You know, once we can build some hooks into some of our core systems that we've identified, where it can give us the visibility into some of the key metrics that we're looking to try to get access to, then that's really where a lot of the great value can come about. Because at that point, we can be simulating a clinical trial. We could be, we can be putting the things on the iPad and the iPhone because of some of the cool things that Oracle's done with some of those applications. But for us, it's about, it's getting back to the business, working with them, making sure their business processes and their data qualities. We're going to, as making sure we made research is all along the way, provide key ability back to in order for them to work building the foundation into key financial systems, giving key visibility. So once we have that basis of which we're providing this into a data warehouse, we can do some cool things on. At that point, then, kind of getting some of the other tools like the iPad and the iPhones, that kind of stuff, or added value.
Jim kind of one of the things over the years that I've learned that's key about the whole business intelligence performance management environment is one of the things that it does is it exposes all the data flaws. And the reality is that prior to implementing a performance management solution, the data flaws were hidden by Excel spreadsheets because people would manipulate them and change them and send the answers out nice and clean. And once you implement a performance management solution, source to end, and it starts exposing the true source data without the Excel manipulation, a ton of questions on why your data is bad. And one of the key things that I've had to do time and again in my organization is remind them, Hyperion is perfectly reflecting what the data is. We have a systems issue where we're not capturing that's been hidden to you all these years by these Excel spreadsheet manipulations. And so what will ultimately happen, and this is a big push right now, expose
dance, especially as a big as Brett pointed out. Grids into S-base. Take some pain. Underlying problem is
spend a lot of time tying back my data to the source, and that's great, and at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, let's go home. When, you know, we're also trying to, we're playing with a new cube that's just statistics, and all it does is go out there, and like, how could I predict the future of groceries? I'm like, I don't know, but I could probably figure out that my manufacturing costs on cookie cracker cake, which whenever I have meetings on that, I go away hungry. But Katie's like, anyway. But I honestly feel like if we have the commodities feed to, you know, that are what the analysts are saying their sugar costs are going to be, I could probably predict some of the costs in the manufacturing of cookie cracker cake, right? So, but you got to start to think of those sorts of things, because sooner or later your boss is going to come back and say, why aren't we doing it? And I'd rather start to think about it now and put together some stuff that we might be able to do with it, because our reporting, being more mature, our reporting is solid, but it needs an upgrade, but it is pretty solid. But that's where we can start to continue to add value.
When you find your organization in a month time spending, you know, a third to a half of the time gathering information to ultimately report on it at the end of the month, you know, then that's when you know that you've got opportunities to try to add value to the organization. And that's really, I mean, that was the paradigm that we were trying to resolve at INC was, you know, we've got all these financial analysts and we've got all these silos of data, and how can we standardize on a common set of reports that can be deployed to everyone in those different types of capacities and give them, you know, 3/4 of the month with the information to actually start enacting on it, as opposed to, you know, maybe some of their prior lives of just gathering the information. And that's where some of the power is. And, you know, at least in our business, that, you know, we're not winning awards and being profitable because we're the cheapest. It's generally that we're adding a lot more business value and being productive as we are organized internally, but yet what we can provide them too that, you know, isn't always so bottom line cost driven as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions?
All right, Todd needed less coffee. You guys need more coffee. Come on.
Well, this whole session, you know, we're gonna summarize it and then send you a PowerPoint presentation if you like. You know, drop your business card. If you have any questions, you know, you can contact me, and we can, you know, let you get some answers. Otherwise, you know, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I think it's different depending upon where you're at. Are you a mature entity? Are you a new entity? You know, and you're talking about analysis, which I am planning for about 1.5 to 2 years out. Right now, my boss is happy when he foots reports and the numbers foot. And when a closing process that used to take 15 days can be done in 2 days. So really, it's knowing your organization and knowing what are their needs and how do we meet them. Because it's not about what I want. It's not about what I would like to play in or what I would like to do. It's about what does that business need. What does it need right now and what does it need in the future?
The business culture plays a big role in technology, deciding which MDM tool we deal to, what database is, what kind of database.
What Billy and Jim both touched on is getting to more data, more efficient. I think that's, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is how to take out the time that the analysts spend collecting data, make sure that the burden is on the system, that they're focusing on true analysis and not just data collection. I think that's what I've seen throughout my entire, however many years I'm about this career.
But it seems like we're still struggling, you know, with data standardization, you know, feeding data accurately. We are not there yet on predictive analytics. We're not data mining and getting, you know, sophisticated analytics
It's
started.
still a wide open field. There's so many choices that can be made, and there's no clear winner or loser in a lot of these categories that, you know, standardization is nice to talk about, but look at that list of ETL tools, and do you see standardization or do you see fragmentation? You know, I think the businesses are the same way. Businesses aren't standard, and needs aren't standard, and
Hopefully you're in a company where you're doing acquisitions and not divestitures, so the company is constantly growing and changing and morphing, and that adds to the complexity, which is why, again, if you can get the data be simpler, easier to collect, and everyone.
Very good. Was this helpful to you all?
Yes.
Great. All right, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.